Well, thank you very much for joining us again. I'm here with Steve, Dave and Fred, and we're talking about Dr. Susan Blackmore's, what I read on her website about the European Journal of UFO and Abduction Studies, and this 4 million Americans, which we kind of, have been quite inflated. But the study was basically, I'm paraphrasing here a great deal. I'm not even paraphrasing, I'm cutting down quite even more than that. It says most experiences are from people's beds at night, which again is what we were going through, the hypnopompic, hypnagogic, and this paralysis sleep state thing. They're rarely from cars or outside, although they do happen outside. Most people experience a blue or white light, some sort of buzzing or humming sound. They feel some sort of anxiety and a sense that someone is in the room with them, or someone is certainly close by. Then they have this feeling that they float to the craft. They are either paralysed or restrained in some way, and then they're examined or implanted with small objects or probed or whatever. And I have cut that, edited that very down to a few little bits. Obviously, the report is huge, and it's a great thing to read. And it's actually it's susanblackmore.co.uk if you get on and have a look, because it's a very good
There is some interesting points. I mean, what we look at there is that things that can be induced through stimulation of the visual cortex, SDP, which is sleep deprivation or deprivation paralysis. If we are closely associated to the alien abduction phenomena, so we're told. And of course, if the alien abduction phenomena is a real phenomena, then there are people who would argue the point that they can, in fact, induce that feeling. They can induce a form of paralysis. And if that is the case, then all the theories that we've got, even Dr. Susan Blackmore would just go out the window, gone.
Yeah.
Because the problem is that we're looking for rational explanations, and we may have found one. We may be able to say, okay, these conditions that the brain is having replicates what's being reported. It doesn't mean that's what it is. It means that they're both are the same, could be the same thing.
But this is my whole thing, is what you just said, and it's so true. We are constantly looking for the rational, and we almost, just because something is irrational does not mean it's not true. It doesn't mean that's not the way. I mean, let's go back 100 years. A mobile phone would be completely irrational for anyone to comprehend 100 years ago. Yeah. Us sitting here with these cameras doing this show would be completely irrational 100 years ago that we could do this. But here we are doing it. And I think that when you have this paralysis, this sleep state thing, it fits in not just for alien abductions, it fits in with probably 70% of ghost stories that you hear.
It does, yeah.
Back in 2001, a programme appeared on the BBC about narcolepsy. And one of the people involved in the programme, one of his reports was at night in bed, he had a lot of disturbed sleep because of his narcolepsy. And one of the things that kept occurring with people would appear in a bedroom, and how he was describing them was alien greys. He also says that there was fingers touching his body, and everything about that was exactly the same, as far as I'm concerned, about alien abductions. Now that you're going to go into a bit of belief about that as well. Is the alien abduction about belief? People believe in the alien greys. They watch Close Encounters of the Third Kind. They watch Signs and the crop circles appear. Well, look at trend patterns. When Signs took place, the film Signs with Mel Gibson was on, crop circles in the UK were exponential, right up. The same with any major media type event. If it's a major UFO film about, well, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, look what happened after that, Steve said earlier. But back to the narcolepsy, this person was actually saying exactly what alien abductees are saying, which led us onto the trail of looking into that and looking at it a little bit more. Not so much testing people, but discussing people, is there a possibility of that? And as I said earlier, we've been able to solve several cases down to nothing more than sleep disorders.
I've got to say, again, one of the things with all of this is that we look at films and all that come out, and it does, it just goes mad for usually 4 or 5 years. It'll go berserk and then it'll lay down again. But is that just because of the film, or are the films doing what's the word I'm looking for? Doing the whole subject well by making people more aware of it? Because, for example, you took a look at Signs. I started to watch Signs, and I just thought it was going to be another Mel Gibson film, blah, blah. But even when I walked away from it, it was making me think slightly more of
Well, that's
potential
exactly what it
connections.
does. It does make people think more. But of course, it has its good points, it has its bad points. You know, and the bad points are that, you know, some people misinterpret their experience, or it could be rational explanation, but it causes thousands of people to report incidents which have rational explanations. Because the general public, I pretty much like that. When we see something on TV, when Steven Spielberg's Taken series was on TV, there was a slight increase in the abduction reports in America. And it always follows that same pattern every single time.
No, I mean, when Jaws, which I think is a brilliant film, but I think it was one of the worst films.
If you did a survey then,
it devastated the shark population around the world.
Let's do a poll then. How many people wouldn't go in the sea?
Well, also, and how it basically, it almost made the grey nurse shark extinct, and has done in certain waters, because people
has it
go
good
and
points
kill it.
and bad points.
I mean, the proof of the pudding in this is to watch out for when Ghostbusters 3 release. They're going to come up with all manner of new equipment that nobody's ever heard of. How many paranormal groups in the UK are going to be following the trend and having that equipment because they've seen it in a Hollywood motion picture?
The funny thing is when we first started with doing our investigations, and you must have got it before, a lot of people were asking where our proton packs were. Because the trouble is, even though it's a comedy, even though it's fiction, some people would take that on board and say, well, he can't be a real ghost investigator.
Back in the late 80s, when I got into investigating, there wasn't any equipment. We didn't have any.
No.
You know, we just had a camera,
But
compass, and just the basic pen and pad. And the fundamental part of investigation was very nuts and bolts phenomena. It has to be. If you throw a brick at this thing, it's going to hit it.
Yeah.
You know. Nowadays, it's so psychic ramifications of UFO experiences. Oh, they're real. They're not real. They're apparitional. They can walk through walls. Or they're ghosts. You know. And there seems to be links between the paranormal and UFOs in some cases. The whole investigation technique nowadays is.
But the whole thing is, with all of these machines that people seem to rely on with all these investigations, are completely useless, because we've never caught a ghost, because we've never actually caught, to my knowledge, certainly openly caught an alien.
I'll stop you there, Cole. Some of the equipment that you're saying that we're using to catch a ghost, it's not for catching ghosts. We're actually monitoring the environment, and when we're able to answer questions about the environments, then we're able to discount that from the investigation.
Absolutely, and that's that sort of equipment. That's what it should be used for. But you take EMF meters.
Yeah, people aren't using them correctly.
No, that's what I mean. But people will buy an EMF meter and think, as soon as it squeaks, I've got a ghost standing next to me. But they forget their main senses: their ears, their eyes, their nose, the sense of touch. And the same with UFOs. I think if you can see something in the sky, you can photograph it 1,000 times, but you're then relying on a piece of technical equipment to basically mirror what you've seen with your eyes. And let's face it, there's nothing that is as good as these things.
No. It can't be proven. I mean, the problem is that if anybody who's really wants to disbelieve the phenomenon, it can't be proven. Nothing can be proven.
Just one thing I'd like to ask. Before the break, you mentioned this woman who was abducted here with the 2 children. When she lost track of that piece of time, what did the children see and what did they do?
Well, at the time, she was walking towards the object. I mean, they couldn't understand. They were holding her hand. And they were saying, Mum, what are you doing? Trying to pull her away. But she was, I don't know if something took over, but she found herself walking towards the object. Yeah. When she got so far near it, a very bright light came from the top of it, a screen came up, and she said that she was looking at some type of screen.
And the children were still outside the crowd?
They were screaming, they were panicking, trying to get the mother away. Yeah, so
I've got to say that story you get, I'd love to talk to this lady, because that's really made me think. And it's when you've got people you respect that come in and say, I know this person and they've come up with this story and I believe what they're saying. It makes you really sort of look at things in a different way. But we've got to actually stop there. I'm really sorry, because as usual, time has completely flown by with us. But thank you very much, Steve. Thank you very much, Dave. And Fred, thank you very much for coming in. And please join us next time on the Great Unexplained Debate.